evening or good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are. It's evening where I am, actually, but I know many of you are in the UK. So the topic is really all around business growth and recruiter success based on measurement, metrics, and KPIs. And I'm aware that that topic sounds pretty dry, but actually I'm encouraging you to see this through a new lens. I was involved in starting 3 recruitment businesses in my life, and each of them grew to over $100 million in sales, mostly because of the efforts of other people, I hasten to add. But what I'm going to share with you today is what I learned about how to scale a recruitment business and how to help recruiters to be as productive as they possibly can be. So it's going to be broken into 3 sections today: ratio and metrics to manage a business. And we're going to kick off with that. But please, if you are a leader of a recruitment company and you think to yourself, I'm not a numbers woman or a numbers man, this is dry stuff, please come into the tent, because nor am I. I'm a people person. But I learned that simply asking people to make more placements, work harder, is fruitless and demotivating and unhelpful. So you've got to know what's working, and to do that, you've got to measure. Then we'll talk about managing a sales ethos. I think across the world, the recruitment industry has slowed. It's a lot harder, and a lot of recruiters are being asked to sell. But for many leaders, all that means is, hey, get on the phone. That's extremely unhelpful. You need to have a process to help people succeed. And then finally, I'll go into the topic of actually helping recruiters maximize their productivity. And KPIs is a word I use with pride. In the industry, it's got a bad name, and mostly KPIs have got a bad name because they are very badly implemented by incompetent managers. The concept of measuring what you want to improve is fundamental to every walk of life, right? Every walk of life. Any sports person, any musician, any scientist, anybody, even the person going to the gym who wants to improve their strength, they measure. They don't just say, hey, I'm getting stronger. They measure that they can lift heavier weights or do more reps. And that's a KPI. So why is it in recruitment we think we can just freewheel like a hippie commune? It doesn't work. So let's rip in. First of all, the Australian recruitment industry is worth 25 billion US dollars. And there are 10,000 recruitment companies in Australia. The UK recruitment industry is worth 43 billion pounds, and there are 30,000 recruitment companies, or there were at the start of 2022. Now, remember, that was after COVID. So maybe there's the same, maybe there's less. Not important. The important stat on that page is that 80% of these businesses globally have fewer than 10 employees. And I would probably go as far as to say it's fewer than 6. Right, so we are an industry of a few giants. We're all aware of them, the Randstads and Hayes and Manpower and those very, very gigantic companies. We've got a handful of medium-sized companies, but the majority of recruitment companies are very small. They're micro businesses. And a micro business or a lifestyle business, it can be very profitable. If there's 5 recruiters sitting in a tiny office or around someone's kitchen table and they're each billing 400 a year, the company's doing 2 million. That will be a highly profitable business, and it will make a lot of money annually for the owners, but it will never be sustainable and no one will ever buy it. So you're not building an asset, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want, a small, tight business, low risk, running it your own way, making lots of money. But you've got to remember, if there's 5 of you around a table and 2 resign and 1 gets pregnant, you don't have a business anymore. It's not sustainable. So you take that risk. Other people would like to grow their businesses, but they don't have the ability. And one of the key components to growing a recruitment business is measuring so you can improve. Measuring so you can improve. On the other hand, we've also got some big dogs in this industry. You'll see them on LinkedIn all the time. Lots of bark. Our revenues grew 20% last year. We're so happy to announce that we have taken on a new client that's $1 million a year. Blah, blah, blah. That tells us nothing about margin and profit. And a lot of those companies, they grow fast because they have as their metric of measurement sales, which is important. We want to grow, but we want to grow at a margin, and with expenses, they're going to lead to a profit. And a lot of those companies fail. So best to get the measurement right. And the whole ethos of what I'm going to talk to you about today, and it's built into my belief about managing recruitment companies and my advice that I give owners of recruitment companies, and that is that you can't manage what you don't measure. It's absolutely fundamental as a philosophy. And so I'm going to go through what I call the 14 sacred recruitment agency business metrics. I believe that recruitment's a blend of art and science. The art is the skills of your recruiters, influencing skills, the listening skills, the selling skills, the consulting, the advising. That is still front and center. But the science is both the tech, which, as you know, is becoming more prevalent and will continue to do so, but also it is the ability to do the arithmetic to know. I'll just jump ahead for a second. Do you in your company know what percentage or the ratio of jobs that you take to the ratio of jobs you fill? Do you know that? Do you measure it monthly? Do you know your trending monthly temporary margin? Do you know the percentage of the jobs that you take that are exclusive? That's basic, but a lot of people don't know that. So we're going to look at these metrics. I'm going to encourage you to use them monthly or quarterly. I'll advise you which ones. But taking action is the differentiator. This isn't an accounting exercise. This is a measurement exercise so we can get better. Just as a sports person will measure the actions they take on the field or on the track, and then they'll try to improve them. This looks scary. Those are the ones we're going to go through. Don't worry about that list. I'm going to go through them one by one. But I want you to understand that we often use the word FTE, and that means numbers of staff. And you've got to if you've got part-time people, you've got to do the sums, right? So it's full-time equivalents. Gross profit is a term I use all the time. Gross profit means net temporary margin and permanent placement fees. You might, in your business, call it net fee income. It's margin, it's income. It's not sales, because sales includes the invoice to the client for the temporary service, and I'm talking about the margin on the temp side and the permanent placement fee. Staff costs, when I refer to staff costs, I mean salary plus bonus plus statutory benefits, whatever they might be. Australia, we have superannuation, which is like a pension. There is insurances, there's payroll tax. You will have things as well in whatever country you are listening from. And EBIT means operating profit before tax. Okay, let's leap in. We've got 14. The first measure, it's a beautiful, simple one. Gross profit per staff member. Do you know what that was in your company last quarter? Do you know what it was the quarter before? How can you tell if you're getting better? Because your profit can be going up, but because you're adding more staff, your gross profit per staff member could be going down. That means you're getting bigger and less productive. That's not the idea of business growth. So you take all your GP, remember that means permanent placement fees and net margin, and you divide it by the number of people employed. It's a no bullshit productivity measure, and you want it trending upwards. Monthly's good, quarterly is okay, but it's a bit late to detect a trend that you might. All this is about reinforcing good trends and mitigating bad trends. So gross profit per staff member, even if you own a 3-4 person company, you should look at that. If you own a bigger company, it becomes critically important, and you shouldn't start your monthly meetings assessing you'll assess the P&L and you'll look at the profit and all those things, and then you'll go up and have a couple of beers and celebrate. But you could be making a mistake. There could be signs in there that are telling you that you're heading in the wrong direction. And these metrics and ratios will tell you those signs. So just going back, it was gross profit per staff member. That includes every member staff. Admin, marketing, sales, accounting, and all your recruiters. But then what we want to do is look at gross profit per income producer. Income producer means consultant, salesperson, paraconsult, anyone involved in generating sales. Now, it's possible for this number to go up, and we could measure this and go, hey, look at this. Our consultants in quarter one did $25,000 each on average. And then in quarter two, they did $30,000. And in quarter three, they did $35,000. We are such legends, you could say. But someone like me will come along and say, but hold on, if you go back to gross profit per staff member, it's going down. And that means you're adding back office people to help the recruiters bill more, and they are billing more, but they're not billing enough to cover the gross profit per staff member going up. And you want that going up. That's what growth is all about. And you can fool yourself that way. And then you look at what I call your gross profit multiple. It's simply dividing all your gross profit by staff salaries, all staff salaries. And you're looking there for sort of 3 times. If you can get 3 times and above, you will be highly profitable, as long as you're not spending money on a corporate jet and all the rest of it. Total GP by staff salaries. And you want that to be going up. Once again, you can actually see your profit going up. And look, our profit's gone up from 100,000 to 120, the next quarter, 140. But you've added so much staff that your gross profit per staff member is going down. That means you're getting less productive. Not a good thing. And then the same calculation, but now with only income producers. Now, we've always said in recruitment, we want people to bill 3 times their salaries, etc. But can you achieve that across your business? Right, so you simply take the total gross profit, permanent placement fees, net temporary margin, divided by the total salaries of the recruiters or anyone involved in income production, salespeople, etc. And you want to watch that closely because it'll be affected by the billings, of course, but also base salaries and your bonus structure. All three of those things have to be working in harmony. And that is something, to be perfectly honest with you, most recruitment companies get wrong. And then they wonder why, hey, we're growing, we're selling more, but we're getting less profitable. It's because you've got base salaries wrong, or you got your bonus structure wrong, or you got your margin wrong. And this is an important one. What you do is you take your total management and staff costs. That's everybody's salaries. You divide it by the gross profit. And you want that to be lower, all right? Lower is better. It's leverage, right? So it's like, hey, for every $4 or $45, sorry, for every $4.50 of salaries, we're getting $10 of gross profit. If it gets to anything close to 60, it's a problem. If it gets to 65, you are not making money. Percent, that is. 45 is best practice. Don't get too hung up on my best practice, etc. It's only indicative. It will depend on a number of things. Clearly, a company doing junior placements versus executive search, these things will be different. But mostly I want you to compare it against your previous quarter or month. It's a trend that is valuable. And then this is a good one. If you're a temp and perm company, and I love perm, I was a perm recruiter and I love it. The thing about permanent is that it's big chunky fees. It can be very profitable, but unfortunately, you've got to understand that if you love perm, as I do, I got to tell you, and this is bad news, permanent is an unfaithful lover. It will run away on you, as it has done, hasn't it, since that post-COVID boom. So you want a blend of temp and perm. Now, that piece of advice is golden, but you've got to check your market and make sure that that's a valid comment in your market. But I think a very healthy recruitment company has got 65, 70% of its GP margin coming from temp and the rest from perm. And I don't want you to achieve that by dropping your perm. Perm is gorgeous. It's highly productive. It's very profitable, but it's likely to drop more quickly in a downturn. So temp helps you be sustainable. And if it starts if your temp is only a small percentage of your total GP, you might be saying to yourself, I remember when we made all that money out of perm. Yes, it can happen, but when the market turns, you will suffer and possibly go bust. Happens thousands of times. Now, this is a rather cool and funky measure. I'll tell you a story. When I started my first business, it was called Recruitment Solutions. I was only one of three guys who started it, and we had lots of brilliant people. And it grew to so successfully within 10 years, we listed it on the Australian Stock Exchange. So it was a very successful business. To list, the people who were assessing its value were financial people. And what they liked was we were paying 1,000 temps when we listed, 1,000 a week. And what it actually meant is that our total expenses, and remember at that point we were a 120-person company with 6 offices across Australia, whatever, our total expenses were covered by our temp gross profit. And that meant if our perm dropped to zero, we're still breaking even. Our perm was not zero, it was 4 million. So the company was making $4 million a year. This was in the 90s. That was a significant business. And we were in the healthy position that our perm was strong, our temp covered all our costs. So a nirvana position is when the temp covers all your costs. And it means you can wake up every morning and say, hey, any permanent placements we make today are profit. Thank you very much indeed. That's ideal. People often ask me what percentage of their gross profit should they send on marketing. And the first thing I say is, if it is shit marketing, like most recruitment marketing, you should spend $0. And those of you in positions of authority in your company, if anyone says to you in marketing or otherwise, that marketing exercise didn't bring in any jobs or any candidates, but it's really good for our brand, slap them. Well, don't slap them. You can't do that. You'll go to jail. But do not take that on board. We are not Nike. We are not Apple. We're not growing a brand. Of course, in our niche, we want people in our audience to know who we are. And yes, we want to connect with those people. But I quote for you, an owner of a recruitment company said to me not that long ago, we spend $150,000 a year on job boards. It doesn't bring us any appropriate candidates, but it's good for our brand. It's a waste of money. It's clogging up your consultants' pipelines of inappropriate people. And you're annoying candidates by not getting back to them. People are spending time on the wrong things. That is not good marketing. Marketing is valuable when it opens a door for a consultant to sell. That's the golden rule. If anyone brings you a marketing idea, how does it help consultants win work? Okay, we've got this event. Yeah, that would be pretty good idea if you can afford it. We've got this great salary survey and market report, and our consultants are going to use that to get meetings or to start conversation. Like it, like it. These are not new ideas, but I like that because it is marketing that leads to sales. And if you've got that marketing, then I think 4 to 5% of your gross profit is a healthy number. If you don't have quality marketing, don't waste the money, but don't not spend on marketing. That's the other thing that's happened in the last year and a half as the market's declined. Owners of recruitment companies have cut their costs, which is a prudent thing to do. But they've cut their marketing and they've cut their training. Those are the two things you should not cut. The consultants do the sales, so give them the skills, but also give them the tools. And then EBIT to gross profit. Now, if you're an entirely perm business, these numbers are going to be unhelpful. But if you're a blended temp and perm business, then I would say best practice EBIT return on gross profit. That means for every dollar or pound of gross profit is temporary margin and permanent placement fees. For every pound, for every dollar, you get 35 cents or 35 pence as profit. That is very, very good. 15 to 20 is more like what I'm seeing at well-run companies, and 10 and less means it's very marginal. A bad quarter and you'll lose money. A very important measure. I do quite like EBIT to revenue. So this is only works if you're a reasonable sized company with a blend of temp and perm. And that means for every dollar of sales, how much profit do we make? Average across UK, Australia, and most of the countries I've been close to, includes those countries, New Zealand, America, and Japan, 3 to 5%. Good is 7.5. That means for every dollar of sales, we get 7.5 cents as profit before tax. Outstanding. 10% is outstanding. Profit to revenue. Revenue and sales are the same thing. Why do so many of us in this industry act as a free bank for our clients? I see it all the time. We do a temp deal. We've got to pay the temps weekly. Client says, I'll pay you in 60 days, but then pays late and it's 90 days. Meantime, you've been paying all their temps every week. You've had to take an overdraft, a mortgage against your house, so that the client doesn't have to pay on time. And every minute that a debt is unpaid, more likely it'll become a bad debt. That is a fact of life. So I'm saying turn your debtors monthly. 30 days, 28 days is best practice. And if it starts to blow out, the great example I like to mention, many years ago, we had in Australia two big airlines, Qantas, that still exists, and the other one was called Ansett. And Ansett went bust. And the day Ansett went bust, 53 recruitment companies in Australia went bust because they had thousands of temps at Ansett, and Ansett hadn't paid their recruitment company bills for months. The recruitment companies had paid their temps every week. They'd gone into debt to pay their temps, and then Ansett went bust, and they were unsecured creditors and good night nurse. Please, some owners of recruitment companies, when I ask them, don't know this number. How can you not know? It's other people using your money. It's other people buying yachts and going on holiday with your money. You have to pay the temps by law. Don't allow your debtors to. By the way, there's permanent placement fees as well, but temps is in a way more real because you have to pay the temps. And then another measure which is good is total expenditure per staff member. It's very simple. You just take your total expenses for a month, bang, it's $100,000. I've got 5 staff, bang, 5 into 100 goes 20. It costs me $20,000 per person to keep the lights on. And when you add people, that number should drop, because if you've got, let's say you've got 10 people in an office and you're paying rents and everything else, and you bring an 11th person in, yes, you've got to pay salary, so that puts your expenditure up, but you don't have to pay any more rent or any more power bills or anything else. So if that person's successful, you should be getting leverage. And I want to see it trending downwards as your company grows and gets more productive, not upwards. And then it's the other ratio that's good to look at is the percentage of your back office costs. That's non-recruiting, non-selling people, support staff, accounting, IT, marketing, etc. What percentage of that of your gross profit? I would say 30% is a good number. Now you've got to take that if there's if there's 3 recruiters or 4 and there's no admin staff, then that percentage is going to be 0. As soon as you add an average staff, it's going to go from 0 to 20%. And if you add another one, it's going to go to 40%. If the gross profit grows, then that percentage will come down. And the only reason you hire admin staff is to help recruiters bill more. Otherwise, why are they there? That is what it's for. So think of it that way. And then this one drives me crazy. You might be guilty. You've got a temporary business. Do you know how to calculate the temp margin? Can you define a temp margin if I asked you to? Do you know the difference between margin and markup? Most people in temp don't. And margin is that percentage of the sale that is income to the business, right? So you charge your client $50 an hour, you pay your temp 30, that leaves 20. Then there's $3 in direct on costs, insurance, pension, whatever it is in your country. That's that leaves 17. And that 17 is the percentage of the 50. This is rather a high number. That is income to the business, and that's the margin. And you should watch that on a trending basis. If you've got 150 to 200 temps out and your average margin drops 1 percentage point, it will cost you $100,000 a year. And yet you don't even know what it is. Maybe you do. Well done. But you've got to be measuring it. And often, why would the margin drop? You see, it's not just the margin dropping. It's like, why has it dropped? Our margin's gone from 17% to 16, the next quarter to 15. That is a tremendously worrying trend. Why? Well, one of the reasons is temps are now in demand and temps are commanding more. Consultants are putting the temp rate up, but they're not passing it on to the clients. That then allows you to do a training course and explain that we must pass it on. As just an example, there's many reasons why it could happen. I like this too, profit per staff member, very, very clean, cuts through everything. We made $100,000 last quarter. We've got 10 staff. That would be nice. Could happen. That means we make $10,000 profit per staff member. As we grow, we want that number going up. Because, I've seen it many, many times in board meetings and so on. Hey, look, guys, last year we made $1 million and this year we made 1.2. That's wonderful. Congratulations. And I'm like, last year we had 10 staff and this year we got 23. Why are we celebrating? Yeah, we made marginally more profit, but we're totally less productive. Now, you could argue that's setting us up for a brilliant following year, but you've got to deliver. Otherwise, we've got bigger for virtually no gain. Hey, now we're going to talk about sales and managing a sales. I'll whip through this. If there is a lack of selling ability in your company and selling activity in your company, it's a leadership issue. 100%. It's a leadership issue. Because you haven't trained, you haven't measured, and you haven't managed people to sell. And you've got to have an ethos in your business is that we sell when we don't need to. God, if I could just have $1 for the amount of times I've lectured people on this. When the market was booming in 22 and 23, and jobs were pouring in the door, consultants and companies and owners got complacent. Now, people, when they hear me say that, they get annoyed. We're not complacent because you're saying we're lazy. That's not what complacent means. Complacence means being satisfied with the status quo. And a lot of people assume we do this all the time in recruitment. Oh, look, it's booming. My clients love me. I filled 18 jobs with that client alone last year. It'll never change. It will change. And when you are filling jobs with clients, that is the time to sell to clients, to build relationships, to go and see them, to ask them for a referral to other people in the company, to get a referral from the London office to the Birmingham office, whatever it might be. You sell when you don't need to, because when you do need to, they're not going to take your calls, as you're just finding out in the last 6 months. So we've got to have a sales ethos that says we always sell. On top of that, recruitment companies lose about 20 to 30% of their clients a year through bad service, decision from the Boston head office, whatever it might be. You've got to keep topping up. You've got to sell always. And what we do in this industry, it's boom or bust, sunshine or rain. And we think it's boom, it'll never end. And the jobs are pouring in the door. But it does end. And you've got to sell beforehand. So a sales ethos means that you would go and you would have an key account management plan. Take your top 25 clients. If you're a smaller company, 10 clients. By GP last year. Get a list of them and say, when did we last go and see them? Now, I know in some markets, UK in particular, Australia too, it's hard for clients to allow you to see them. But you've got to make it worth their while. And that might mean something like, ask the client, we've worked with you for 3 years. I would like you to do a performance review. You mean Greg, performance review? I want to come and see you, and I would like you to have thought about it. I'm going to give you a list of all the placements we've made, and I want you to tell me what we've done well and what we could do better. I want you to have no resentment about our fees because we are getting better. They're likely to meet you. Meet other decision makers in the company. What else can I do for you? Cross-sell, temp to perm, marketing division to accounting division. We say we do that in recruitment. We're very bad at it. Invite your client to a niche event that's of interest to them. Go with them, buy them a coffee. You don't have to stalk them the whole event, but make sure you're around them from time to time and build a relationship. Every client you've had a placement with in the last 3 years, call them up. Bob, I've dropped the ball. We placed Penny Smith with you 2 years ago, and I haven't been in touch. This is all my fault. I'd really like to reignite our relationship. What about all your dormant clients? Run a list from your ATS of all the clients you've placed in the last 5 years. You go through that list. I promise you, the team will say, happened to ABC Limited? What happened there? And we don't even know. Every good candidate you placed on your ATS, or every good candidate you haven't placed, I should say, we rank them as shortlist towards us. They know who we are. Call them up. They're now in a senior position. What about every lost temp? Run a list of all your temps and your temp team will say, look, she was a great temp. She temped for us for 10 times. What happened to her? We'll find out. Call her. If she's temping another company, that's a lead in itself, isn't it? But maybe she's taken a perm job and she's now an advocate for your company potentially as a client. Mingle in real life. Go where your clients are and measure all these things. In fact, there's a slide on that. Measure these activities. Hold individuals accountable. I mean, just say you've got 10 recruiters and you said, I'd like you to each to call 5 candidates that were rated A caliber candidates in our company over the last 2 years, and we've lost sight of them. I just want you to call 5 a week. That's 50 outgoing calls a week. That's, 500 outgoing calls a year. That's just 5 calls each a week. It's not even a big burden. They could knock it over before tea on Monday morning. But you measure it and you celebrate when somebody gets hold of someone and gets a job or something. You know, people say the market's tough, but is it? If you're not doing these things, you can't really say the market's tough because you haven't done the work. Okay, we're on to, believe it or not, the final section. And this is where I say to you that the recruiter is still your biggest cost. If you go to your P&L, you'll find you're spending 60 cents of every dollar on staff salaries, and that's mostly recruiters. The recruiter absorbs your management time. Hiring good people has never been harder, even though the market's depressed. Best people are being looked after. Staff turnover in our industry remains high. Despite all the tech, in fact, because of all the tech, in the end, you know, all this talk of AI, and it's true, but in the end, all recruitment companies will have the same tech as they do now. They all have a good ATS. They all have LinkedIn. They've all got the marketing tools. That's not the differentiator. The differentiator is the skill of the recruiter and what they do. That's where you put your energies to differentiate. And so some savage truths about KPIs. I don't care what you call them your dashboard, call them your goals, whatever. They are good. No one succeeds in recruitment without doing enough activity. That is a gospel truth. If you don't do enough, it's like if you're a footballer and your job is to score goals, the one thing you have to do is take shots on goal. If you go through a season without taking a single shot, you will score 0 goals. Now, I know it's kind of trite with that sport. It's quite good, though, because even if you do start taking shots on goal, that's not enough for you to score goals. They've got to be quality shots, top left-hand corner, bottom right-hand corner. And if you do enough shots, that's the activity, enough quality, you'll score goals. And the analogy with recruitment is very clear. You've got to do enough of the things that lead to success. And how do you know you're doing enough if you don't measure them? That's what we call a KPI. And KPIs are not micromanaging. They are liberating. They give you clarity. Would you rather have a manager who comes in and says, hey, mate, you're not billing enough. Could you make some more placements? Like, that is very effing unhelpful. It's like saying to a guy who hasn't scored a goal for 6 months, could you score a goal? He's dreaming about it. Doesn't need you to say that. But the recruiter, instead of saying, could you work harder? Could you make a placement? If you could say, look, you're taking a lot of jobs, but you're only filling 1 out of 12. Maybe we've got to do a course for you on how to qualify job orders. Now, that's helpful. Or you're not sending out enough resumes. But you've got to, and the secret to KPIs, which so many people in our industry don't understand, is you've got to get the recruiter buy-in. It's not just walking in and telling them what to do. It's bringing them into the tent and allowing and encouraging that recruiter to understand how their activity leads to success. Here's the most important slide that you'll ever see about recruitment in your life, because this is the secret formula to success in recruitment. You've got to run a company where your recruiters, or if you're a recruiter, you've got to have high levels of activity, lots of shots on goal, high quality, shots that are hard to save, with the right people. So if you do 2 interviews a week of candidates and I do 10, I'm smashing you on activity. Right? I'm doing 10 candidate interviews a week. What are you doing too? But that's purely activity. You might be doing 2 high quality, in-depth interviews with candidates where you build rapport and you have key understanding of why they'll accept a job. I could be doing terrible interviews. So you've got low activity, but high quality. If we get you to lift your activity, say 6 a week, now you've got high activity and high quality. But are you doing it with the right people? And by that, I mean, are you interviewing candidates that have the skills that your clients will hire? Or if you're visiting clients, are you visiting the decision maker? So it's activity, so the client meeting, lots of them, good. High quality meetings, which by the way, most recruiters have got no idea how to do. That's another training session. But then also with the right people, with the decision maker, with companies that are hiring, companies that will pay our fee. So you don't focus the recruiter on the outcome. It's unhelpful to say to a recruiter, right, mate, last quarter was no good. This quarter, your goal is £100,000. Right? Make some placements. Thanks. That's really not helpful. I know what my target is, and you already emailed it to me. But if I'm getting help as a recruiter on what activities that are leading to success, that is valuable guidance and leadership. I'll give you an example. Average permanent placement fee in your company or for your recruiters. Do you know what it is? I'll bet quite a lot of money you don't. Most people don't. If I had that piece of information and I had your CCI to placement ratio, CCI is the term I made up. It means client candidate interview. So the amount of interviews your candidates have to have before they get a placement, and you'll have a ratio for each consultant and for your company. All you've got to do is you go to your ATS for your branch or an individual, total number of client candidate interviews divided by your placements. You'll get a number. It'll be 3 to 1, 4 to 1, 5 to 1, 10 to 1 in some cases. Now that is very helpful because you've got two recruiters sitting next to each other and one's billing 500 a year and one's billing 200 a year. What are you going to do to the 200 guy? Make more placements? What kind of leader are you? You need to be able to show that recruiter that he or she is averaging 10 to 1. Therefore, there's issues around the quality of the taking of the job and the matching of the candidate because the successful recruiters are getting 3 to 1. That is now helpful, not to make their underperforming recruiter feel bad, but to give that underperforming recruiter a roadmap. It's liberating. It's empowering. So here's my example. You take your average placement fee. You tell me that. You tell me what your interview to placement ratio is, and you tell me the number of interviews you've made, and I will tell you what you're going to bill in the future month. Not because I'm a fortune teller, but because it's science. Let's do it. Your average placement fee is $10,000. If you're in the UK, insert pounds. Your CCI to placement ratio in this example is 4. That means across the previous year, every 4th interview turned into a placement. Now, I know, and you know, 1 week you can make 12 interviews and get no placements, and the next week you can make 3 interviews and get 3 placements. But it averages out, and those averages don't vary very much between an individual. So in this case, I'm saying it's 10,000 a placement, and it's 4 interviews to a placement. And this recruiter that we're talking about, she has got 12 interviews lined up this month. Just quickly, in your own mind, have a guess of what she's going to bill. It won't be a guess. If you do the science, the arithmetic, you will find that it's $30,000. Has to be. Her placements are 10,000 each. She's made 12 interviews. Every 4th interview, which is 3, equals a placement. 3 times 10 is 30. Now, if I had that in front of me and it was a recruiter's average for a year each month, I'd say, look, what are the ways we can improve your numbers? Well, one is we could increase our average fee. That's hard. We've got to lift the percentage. We've got to list the seniority of the job. The second is we could increase our hit rate with better matching. If we drop that to 3, her billings go to 40,000 a month, which is 10 more a month, which is 120 a year. That would be extremely helpful for the company and for the individual who's paid a percentage of their billings. And she could increase the 12 to 16. That would also add 20%. More shots on goal. Very simple. But why don't you have this mechanism for managing your staff? Wouldn't your conversations about performance be so much more collaborative and helpful? And these are KPIs, the things that we all hate in recruitment. What bullshit. We should love them. But you can't make up the KPIs. You've got to have a backwards plan. And I'll just go through this quickly. Say we're talking about a permanent team here. Let's say the goal is 600,000 a quarter. Most recruitment companies, okay, guys, ladies, gents, we did 500 last quarter. This quarter, it's 600. I want you to work hard, make lots of placements. Good luck. 600, away you go. 100,000 pounds? That's just a massive number hanging over me. Doesn't help me in any way. First thing you do is you say our average placement fee is 12,000. And 12,000 into 600,000 equals 50. We now know that this team has to make 50 placements. And there are 13 weeks in a quarter. I say 12 because there's always one for a holiday. 12 into 50 goes 4. Now, instead of saying make 600,000, what you're saying is let's make 4 placements a week. I can get my arms around that. That's very understandable. It's not scary. It's like 4. Yeah, it's 5 of us in this team. We can do that. Then you work out your CCI to placement, which my example in the previous was 4, I think. And this one's it's 5. So if we have to make 4 placements and every 5th interview is the placement, we have to make 20 interviews a week. And there's 5 days in a week if you didn't know. So that means there's 4. The goal instead of 600,000 is now 4 interviews a day, the team. and there's 5 people in the team, bang, 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 work it out. Each consultant has to make 4 interviews a week. Now, I've got ownership of that. I can make 4 interviews a week. I can get 4 good candidates sitting up with 4 good clients. If everyone does that every week, we'll do 600,000. It's science. Beautiful thing. Another kind of backwards plan is quite cool. This is for an individual. So a backwards plan for job, this is a good one. You've got to do 100,000 a month, a quarter, let's say. Says the boss to the recruiter, away you go. Good boss will say, but your average placement fee is 12.5. That means you're actually aiming at 8 placements this quarter. Well, that immediately is more manageable. But you only fill 1 job out of 5, which, by the way, is the average in the UK and in Australia. But let's not go there for today. But 1 out of 5. Well, if she has to fill 8 jobs, that means she's got to take 40 jobs. Now, you say that to a recruiter, like, are you crazy? I don't need to take 40 jobs to fill 8. Well, you do, because your last 2 years, you've filled 1 out of 5. That's science. What you can do is increase your hit rate to 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 3, and then you won't have to take as many jobs. But under this scenario, you've got to take just over 3 jobs a week. Otherwise, you won't hit your target. But can't you see that you can work with someone? Let's get your placement fee up. Let's get your job fill ratio down. And that is going to just flow on to better results, better job satisfaction, more profit for the company, better earnings for the consultant, just a range of beautiful things. So don't get hung up on my backwards plans. I'm not saying implement those exact plans. It's the concept I'd like you to implement, where you devise what in your company drives success and bring the recruiter on a journey to understanding it so that they love their KPIs because they help them. Just heard my son come home and I think he's going to burst in here and tell me something because he doesn't know I'm on this. And then you devise your activities accordingly. So I think APIs and measurement and backwards planning are the tools for incredible success in this industry if they're implemented with empathy and accountability. And honestly, it took me many, many years to learn that is the magic blend. Actually, it's really 3 things: empathy, accountability, and consequences. A lot of recruitment companies are run like freewheeling hippie communes. It's the vibe. We don't have KPIs because that's micromanaging. You are harming someone's career. You are harming someone's earning power unless you help them understand what it is they need to do to be successful. And we do need empathy. We do need to understand people are scared to do new things. We do need to understand people have got issues at home. We do need to understand people are going to get tired and they're going to lose confidence. And that is true and real and authentic. But on the other hand, people have to be accountable for what they agree to do. And it's that blend that leads to success in recruitment leadership and success. And people will, in the end, thank you for it. All empathy, they won't thank you for it. It's a real cool place. It's, it's all a vibe, and then they get fired because the company can't keep them. Or it's all, do 100 of these by 9 o'clock or you're fired. That's just what used to be like that when I first got into recruitment. And that's just as wrong. It's the blend. You can look at it on my website and look at the demo, etc. I encourage you to consider subscribing for your team. If you send me an email, I'll tell my guys to give you a discount if you sign up. What is that discount? Depends on my mood, but probably 15%. Depends on a lot of things. Finally, thank you to Recruiterflow, who are in fact the hosts of this webinar. They are an ATS CRM system, and if you're not fully aware of them, have a look at their website. They'll also gladly give you a demo of what they can do.
Thank you so much, Greg, for doing this webinar.
Thank you very much, Sagrina. Thank you, Recruiterflow. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Bye.
Bye-bye.